And good evening, everybody. Greetings and salutations. I'm Gary Redmond. Welcome to New York Red Bulls Discussion Group, the podcast, episode 90. We're just chugging along right here. We had a very good week here for New York Red Bulls soccer. And lots, of course, that we're going to talk about. The key word of the day, boys and girls, is American relegation, a.k.a. playoffs. And we're going to talk a lot about that because despite it all, the Red Bulls are in the mix. So we're going to talk about basically the match recap, which was FC Cincinnati, which was a huge win on the road against the team that was collecting their very first supporter shield. Congrats to them. But we kind of spoiled the party, which was very nice, which was needed to do. Now, of course, we're going to talk about the New York Red Bulls versus Toronto FC. A certain beleaguered forward got his goal, and we'll talk about how huge that was. And of course, that leads after the international break. It's going to be the game of the year, whether or not we get in or not. Of course, we're going to be looking at other scores as well. Carlos Cano will basically put you guys to school about the doings of Nashville SC versus New York Red Bulls. We're also going to discuss New York, New Jersey, Gotham FC, and of course, New York Red Bulls 2. One season ended, one season continuing. Of course, they're going to be playing this Sunday, and want you guys to go out and check them out. Now, of course, naturally, the final word of the live audience, and of course, match predictions from myself and Miguel and Carlos. Now, as always, if you missed the live show, please don't worry about it. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel and Spotify.com the very next day. You can also check out our previous episodes there as well. This is season number 3 of New York Red Bulls Discussion Group, the podcast. And at the end of the year, all 3 episodes will be uploaded for your watching and listening pleasure. And we've always say this, and because it's 100% true, this is your show. Okay, it was created by the group, for the group, from the group. Okay, so we want you guys to help us give us what is the best foot forward and make us the best out there for everyone to see. So if you have any questions, comments, hot takes, suggestions, do send them our way at NYRBDG the podcast at gmail.com. Again, that email address is NYRBDG the podcast at gmail.com. And as I bring in 2 of my we have the original 3 tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Carlos Cano, and of course the one and only Miguel Angel Nunez. Before we begin, a certain gentleman and his lovely wife celebrate an anniversary. So to you, Carlos, and of course Clarissa, happy anniversary to you both. I mean,
happy anniversary.
Done,
Yep. Thank you very much, boys. Appreciate y'all.
Of course, I have to send flowers to your lovely wife for you putting up with me for the last 3 seasons. And pretty much the reason why I can sometimes hold you hostage and all that thing. Lots to talk about. Before this week started out, Carlos, we did say that this was going to be a definitive week, whether this Red Bull team was going to go on or go home. And so far, we got a winning streak going on. Okay, they went down to Cincinnati, and the game they simply had to have, got it, and they follow up with something that they were supposed to do versus Toronto. So right off the bat, I'm going to ask this question: you impressed, or are you still not impressed?
I feel much better than I did.
You do
post Chicago. Absolutely. Look, we were here last Monday, and we were not very optimistic about going on the road and getting any kind of a result in Cincinnati. They did that, but and I agree. I mean, regardless of whatever had happened on Wednesday, the notion was that they would get some kind of a result versus Toronto. I think the difference was that thinking, well, they're not going to get a result in Cincy, that the last home game was really going to be a non-starter because they would not be really in contention. But here we are about to talk American relegation with this team because it will come down to decision day. Unfortunately, the way that this season has played out, their destiny is not in their own hands. They're going to need some help. And I know we're going to talk about that, but to say that I don't feel better than I did after the Chicago game would be a lie. So I definitely feel a lot better. But time will tell. But definitely 2 big wins, arguably the 2 biggest wins of the season for this club.
Now, Milton Solis was handling the game thread for the Cincinnati match. Well done to him, and kudos. Miguel, you and I talked about this before, during, and after the match about the Cincinnati game. You said that and it was a big if, because you felt that they really didn't have much of a chance there. They started off on the right foot, got a goal and silenced the crowd, and they doubled the lead before halftime. At that point, things were doing pretty well. So I'll ask you, were you impressed on that match, how the team, came out, right out the gate?
Yeah, I was very impressed with that match, Gary. I really
Glad
didn't think that we
speechless.
could even get a draw.
I didn't
Yeah,
think it was
I
possible.
was
I didn't think there was.
Okay.
I didn't think it was
No,
possible. The game had the man
I
speechless. I mean, usually he's not a lot. He's not lost for
listen,
words. But here we are.
I was shocked. I mean, especially because Elias Manuel scored, Gary. Okay, that was like shocking to me. Okay, maybe not as shocking as Tom Barlow scoring a goal. Okay, but still shocking to me. Luquinhas came alive. He had two assists. Okay, so that we picked up 3 points there was very shocking to me. But I was so elated that we did, because I always felt that we could get a win versus Toronto, like the worst team in the league, and they proved themselves to be just that, the worst team in the league. And
they have not won.
Listen,
go ahead.
You're the worst team in the league when you're allowing Tommy Barlow to score a goal on you. Okay, so
it's more than just that. That team has been snake bit. Okay,
no, I know
they haven't won a single game on the road all year.
Yeah,
think about that for a second.
But you know what?
They're 0 for 16 on the road. I mean, when you have how disappointing you have to be when you have guys like Bernardeschi and, of course, the other Italian stud on your roster, and you have a pretty solid crew, at least you think you do, and then every time you step away from BMO Field, you get slain every single time. And I know our supporters sometimes go apocalyptic whenever a team loses to someone below in the standings. But imagine you're the TFC supporters. I mean, how are you feeling right now? I mean, you're looking at this squad and going, okay, what have we done? What did we do to the football gods to deserve this? And they wear pink jerseys. Now, of course, everyone likes to talk about our mustard yellow, disgusting looking secondary kits. But I saw these guys roll up in pink. Unless these guys were wearing pink for a reason, like breast cancer research or something like that. Pink. This was their road jersey. This was their secondary jersey. Wearing red. Pink.
What it was, Gary, I think psychologically they wanted to think they were Miami with Messi on the team, okay? But it didn't work out. You know what? Somebody on that thread said something that those pink Toronto kids are definitely the worst kids in MLS. And I said, no. Just look at our kids right now, okay? On the field. Those are the worst kids in MLS.
What, the
okay?
hip-hop kids?
But you know what?
No,
please. The Crayola crayon kids are the worst kids in MLS.
Crayola crayons. That's really nice. It's the rotten egg kid.
This scarf was
fine.
I like the color. Okay, red and black. I've always said, if nothing else, I'm gonna write a letter to the Grand Prix and, of course, naturally to Joey Stetson. Please keep the shorts and the socks and match that with the red kit. That's a killer combo.
Look,
I'm
serious.
serious.
What needs to happen
next season? Serious. Metro colors forever.
Well, that's not going to. That's not going to happen. They need to. What they need to do is they need to burn the rotten egg kit. They need to burn it. And the only kit that needs to come back next season is the remix kit, the one that they wore on Saturday, because we know that this. So if I remember right, next season we would lose the red kit, the one Ritmo kit, and so technically we would have the
the
Rotten Egg kit.
Right, that will run its course. The one Ritmo kit is going to run its course. We're going to have to get a new one next year.
Yeah.
So,
but we can't keep that. No, it can't happen. Like I can't do it.
No,
can't happen.
Put that in a closet somewhere, never to see the light of day.
Yeah,
please.
It should be the hip hop kit. Because I think that for any number of reasons, but anything is better than the moldy yellow kit. And then whatever the new one is going to be for next season, because we obviously always get a new one.
The one that I really like is that it's called the Parlay kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we always get every year. There's a Parlay kit.
We'll
always get one.
It's all in black. It's all in black. It's got the lines in blue. That's a really
this
nice
year's
one.
wasn't. This year's wasn't very very stunning to me anyway.
Okay.
Let's see what we got.
I actually disagree with you. I was stunned that they let that Crayola crayon kid, onto the field. Yeah, there you go.
Well, up until that match, they never won in it. So
yeah,
they had to break the duck, for that. But if there's one kit they really should bring back, especially on the road, I would take the hip hop kit at home. Considering because it has some red in it, but if they're gonna bring any secondary kit, it's got to be golden, navy blue and gold. Give me something like that. Okay, you can't go wrong with those type of colors. I know someone would disagree, or something in monochrome and gray, something like stone gray or something like that. Like definitely road colors or something. With a little bit of black with red. With a red edge into it. Hell, even have the Bulls logo in red and monochrome, just like this one here.
Yeah,
that'll work. Okay, when I'm talking about stone gray, I'm talking about this gray. Okay, that would a little bit off. Not too dark and not too light. Let's put it that way.
Gary, I would take the kit that I would like to see is the red body and the white arms. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, Arsenal. Yeah, those. You got to make up your mind.
There you go.
You got to make up your mind which club you're supporting to. Okay?
Now,
First is Arsenal. Then it's Miami. Then it's the Red Bulls. Listen, what's wrong with you?
Listen. I support one club, and I support one franchise. Okay, those are my loves. Okay, one club, one franchise.
Okay,
Miami. It's all just
right,
there, whatever.
Where's that mute button? We got to cut off one of my hosts here. All right, so a little bit of homework, of course. Let's get back to the fun part, as of course, naturally, as we know. Red Bulls won that game 2-1 in Cincinnati, and then followed up with this terrific win on the road. Red Bulls defeating Toronto FC 3-0. Barlow on the 45th minute, which literally had the fans jumping out of their seats, depending what side you want. And then Luquinas scored twice in the 48th and 65th minute. Now, the goals from Luquinas were the second and third of the season across all competitions. Luquinas has scored about 3 career goals in 2 appearances against Toronto FC. Now, the Brazilian midfielder has scored 2 goals and 3 assists in his last 4 MLS matches. Now, Manuel's 3 assists, he had them, was his 3rd, his 4th, and 5th in MLS this season. And he also recorded his first multi-assist match. And this is the 3rd Red Bulls player to have a multi-assist match this season, matching both Frankie Amaya and Luquinas. So it's amazing if we had these guys do this, Miguel, consistently. What's the theme that we always like to label this team sometimes? Consistently inconsistent.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at that match against Toronto, never mind the goals, but I thought Kyle Duncan was like the best player on the pitch. Okay, why can't he do that every game, Gary, or close to it? If we had, that's what it is. And even what's his name, Frankie Amaya is the same, man. Okay,
I mean, sometimes I know how
he's great and he's invisible.
I mean, you had some big doings with you had some big doings with Frankie Amaya. First when he's on, Okay, when he's on, he's practically
He
one
looks
of the
world
best.
class.
He looks
World
world class.
class.
But
Okay.
again with Amaya, we talked about this a lot. Okay. In some nights he's lights out. In others, he's milk carton. I want him more lights out. I want people to recognize this kid. Okay, is one of the best in the league, but he can't do that if he's not consistent with it. And every time when he's not, he's off the field, of course, naturally because of squad rotation. But going next year, if he is still here, I'm sure he will be. If he's going to still be here, I would like for him to step up his game and have more staying power on that pitch. I would like to see him one of the 4 core midfielders that will take this team to wherever they need to be, because based on something that you hate very much, the system, okay, if the midfield goes, so does the team. And if you don't have the midfielders flying in all cylinders, well, you're going to have moments like you had versus Chicago. Now, I know, Carlos, you're going to tell me to shut the hell up in this particular segment, but how big is that loss to Chicago now?
Well, it sucks because if we had, I mean, I guess you'd have to figure out.
Garry, shut up. We don't want you hitting. We don't want you jinxing the team right now.
I have to figure out you'd have to figure out all the math and whatnot, right? But you would think that if they had won against Chicago, then assuming that the 2 results over the last week would have been the same at Cincy and then versus Toronto, that we would be probably in full control of our own destiny going into decision day. But we're not. So, at the end of the day, it's moot because it is what it is. We lost that game. You can't do anything about it. But we have won our last 2. And so, you know what? We'll go into decision day and, we have to get that win. That's all we know. I mean, everything else is outside of this team's control, but they have to go to national and win.
Now, Miguel, you said this all along. Scoring first basically definitely helps out the Red Bulls in the long run, and they got a pretty good record. You can tell the fans, what is the mark when they scored the first goal in the season?
Yeah, when the Red Bulls have recorded the first goal of the game, they're 9 wins, 2 losses, and 2 draws. Okay, when they're scoring the first goal, that's a pretty good record. That's not bad at all.
No, I mean, this is something that we wish that this team would do often. Okay, but this is what they do. This is their identity. Okay, when they get on the right foot, and if they're on the right foot, and they scored that first goal, they're tough to beat. And then their defense takes over. That's why I have a little bit of hope, okay, going into American relegation. There's that hashtag once again. I have a little bit of hope for that because I feel that they have as much chance as making it to the next round until naturally they run into of a pretty good elite side, which is any one of the Orlandos or the FC Cincinnati's or any of the clubs that finish the top 4, which is something that I hold this club in this stead. Carlos, you look at this particular stat. And if you're Toronto FC, you're sick of seeing the Red Bulls. I mean, this is like the last club you want to see on this one. I mean, you look at this stat, every time when we face Toronto, it's funny, away from BMO Field, we pretty much have a really good time. What is it with it that we, whether it be BMO Field or here, it's like this is the last club they want to face.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're undefeated against Toronto in their last 6, and Toronto doesn't do themselves any favors because they're not very good. But I think at the end of the day, what counts is that this team can be a lot better than we give them credit for. And the problem is that they are consistently inconsistent, as we say here all the time. That's the biggest problem. This team does have the talent. This team, when it puts everything in place and everything falls into place, they can play, they can hang. The problem is that they haven't done that consistently enough, and now they find themselves in the predicament that they're in. But look, they were doing things on Saturday that you really wish you had seen them doing all season long. To me,
like Tom Barlow scoring a goal. There you go.
Well, to me, look, to me, the best
Yeah, we're
player
going to talk
on the
about that.
field.
We're going to talk about that in a second. Go ahead. Go ahead.
To me,
Carlos.
the best player on the field Saturday night was Elias Manuel.
Okay.
And it was about time. 3 assists. I mean, Tom Barlow's goal doesn't happen if Manuel doesn't press. So
absolutely.
Again,
Pick
you see that this team can play what this club, what this franchise, whatever you want to call them, wants them to play. The problem is that they don't do it consistently enough where we can be here on a weekly basis and talk positively about the team. We end up talking about lackluster performances because they don't live up to the expectation. But Manuel was great. I mean, overall, I think everyone was great. There isn't anyone that I could pinpoint or look at and say, "Oh, they had a so-so game." I think everyone did what they had to do, and that's all the stuff we talk about all season long. They were making runs off of the ball. They were moving around as the ball was moving around. It wasn't just let's pass while we just all stand in the same spot and we hope that we'll create something. Things were happening and they capitalized on all of the opportunities that they have. And another thing that they did, which we talk about constantly, they shot the ball. Luquinhas takes 2 shots. One of them was just inside the 18. The other, I think, roughly in the same roundabouts area. But when you take shots, you create chances, you create opportunities. And against a poor team like Toronto, you're going to make things happen. And so that shows that 3-0 scoreboard.
Yeah, especially that goal that he scored. I was saying to myself in the press box, I was like, don't fall down, just power right through. They're not giving you anything. And it's almost like he read my mind and just went right through them and scored that goal. And I was like, okay, it's because the word is out on Luquinhas, okay? He flops in the box too damn much. This is probably the reason why MLS decided to slap him with a fine. Basically, is his way of saying, look, man, we can't have you diving in the box all the damn time. I remember, I do believe it was versus Chicago, where he got tackled in the box, he was screaming for a call, and the ref said, what do you want? Okay. And he basically got ignored, okay, the rest of the match. I'm sure the guys at Pro saw that and said, look, you got to come get your boy, because we're getting tired of of our guys being suckered into giving penalty kicks in the box because he falls too much. This time he stood on his feet, and maybe he got the message or realized that, okay, if you're gonna give me a PK, I'm gonna have to earn it. And I said that he's gonna have to earn it now. He's gonna have, which means it's good for him because now defenders ain't gonna have no choice but to knock him down. And if you do, you're gonna knock him down at your peril, which is something that I want him to do anyway. The one thing about Luquinhas a lot of people seem to overlook, Miguel, he has a terrific way of getting in that box. He's small, he's shifty, and he can get in your kitchen before you know it. And if you're a defender, you got one or two choices to dispossess him of the ball. Get to the ball, make a great tackle, or make a stupid one in the box, and you get a PK. Miguel, you're on.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he's a typical Brazilian player, Garry. Okay, I would say a typical Brazilian midfielder. I wouldn't, like a typical Brazilian forward, but a lot of these guys, they just go to that school of like, if somebody barely touches me, they're falling down, especially if they're in the box. Okay, you know what? As a matter of fact, I forget what game it was recently. It might have been that. It might have been the Chicago game, but I'm not sure. He gets in the box. The opposing player doesn't even touch him. Okay,
right,
and he's like he's falling over like he was getting shot, man.
Yeah,
come on,
other players and refs they can't stand. Yeah, they can't stand that. They get annoyed when they see that, and that's probably the reason why he was virtually ignored every subsequent tackle that was even legit, every foul in the box, and he was just simply being ignored. It was a no blood, no foul. That's how the ref was taking it. I'm sick of you. But if he stayed on his feet, and dribbles deeper in the box, he's definitely he's definitely got a chance. He's also making chances, to Carlos's point, make shots. And if you continue to make shots, you got a chance to to convert, whatever the case, because we do have a lot of poachers around him, despite the fact that we heard. Now, Carlos Coronel, of course, appeared in his 100 career match for the Red Bulls, and he recorded his 38th career win for the club, which moves him into sole possession of third place in franchise history, passing Tim Howard. Pour one out for poor Tim, the Metro Star, the Paragon goalkeeper, who's now on his way to play for the national team, has recorded 8 clean MLS clean sheets this season. He's got 30 career shutouts. Now, when you see a guys, with that type of stat, you figure that he's one of the best keepers in the league, yet he's not recognized as much. Is that a slight on him, or does he have more work to do?
I mean, I've always thought Coronel was slighted, but I feel like that's historically true of the majority of our keepers. I felt like Robles never got his credit either when he was here. But that's neither here nor there, to be honest. I mean, I think most of these folks, I think the individual accolades are always great, right? They're great to add to the resume, things like all-star games and, best keeper and things like that. But at the end of the day, some of those are real arbitrary, and there's no real rhyme or reason to some of them. So it is what it is. I think we know what we have in net, and we've been very fortunate, I think, over the course of time to have had some really great, renowned goalkeepers on this club. So,
Miguel?
Yeah, I think that he would not have he would not be slighted as he has been if the Red Bulls had a better record. Okay. So I don't think it's a slight on his performances because he's been really, really good for us. Okay. But the problem is, like other teams have been excellent. That's why they have more points than us. And then
they have better keepers.
There you go. Okay. But now, you know what? He is being recognized at the international level with him now playing internationally for Paraguay. And then, if he stays for a while, we're going to have to, I don't know, look forward to him departing on international duty. And then, we might have another keeper in goal if a window doesn't coincide with MLS play stopped, being stopped.
Okay. Now, the good thing with the win, it gives the win gives the Red Bulls, their 10th win of the season. Their record thus far, of course, is 10, 13, and 10. Basically, you're playing 500 football at this point. While they did not clinch a playoff spot, they didn't get eliminated either, which is probably the best news of all. Because if you looked at before the game, the number of scenarios where the Red Bulls could find themselves with an E right next to their name, a la DC, Miami, and Toronto, all being eliminated, which is weird because DC, because of goal difference, yes, sir, because of goal difference, they're hanging on to that 9th spot, despite the fact that they're eliminated and they don't have any games to play anymore, folks. That's it. They played their last card. Not only they lost their last game, but they also lost Wayne Rooney for good. He and DC United have decided to part ways. So here's the standings as it is up to date right now. Starting from 10th place, from 9th place, DC holds the very last playoff spot with 40 points. Right next to, 40 points. The Red Bulls also have 40 points. Chicago has 40 points. 39 belongs to both, 39 points on 12th place goes to Charlotte. And, of course, NYCFC, they're still in the mix. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are still in the mix for that final playoff spot. Now, nobody plays anybody next week because of the international break, but the week after Saturday, Wednesday, Charlotte versus Miami, and that is the first half of the home and home series. And everyone is going to be watching that match, okay? And also Chicago versus NYCFC, because somebody has to win or somebody has to lose. Now, the reason why we're hoping that Charlotte drops maybe one or two of their games is because if they do, okay, that leaves us a wide open. But if they win both games versus Miami, we can be on the outside looking in before decision day, and that's not a very good look. So this is the reason why I keep harping on the Chicago loss, that 1-0 loss at home. Had we won that game, we wouldn't be in this situation. But now we're basically on a 50-50 chance. Miguel, we talked about this before the show. How much of a chance do you think we got at this point? Are we alive or are we dead at this point? We were looking at Miami. Miami's got nothing to play for. Most of their starters are going to be coming back from international competition. Ditto, okay, for Charlotte. They got a lot of guys going off in international competition for their European contingent. So, this is going to be a knife fight either way. But do you see Charlotte getting out of this mess, or do Red Bulls rue their chances of dropping those points at home?
Well, you know what? As we spoke about it earlier, it's going to be hard enough to go into Nashville to win our game. Okay, that's the first thing we need to do. Okay, because they might be able to move up a spot. Nashville, they have 2 more games. We only have
Correct.
1. Okay,
Just 1.
So then. And they have players like Hani Mukhtar, for instance, okay? Or very own Dax McCarty and Alex Muil even, okay? But you know what? I think we need to get that done. But Charlotte has a very good chance of picking up points because Miami has nothing to play for, Garry, okay? And we saw Miami lose some games recently just because Messi was not there, okay? Just Messi was not there, but they had all their other guys, and they still lost a couple of games, okay? So I can't imagine with nothing to play for that Miami's going to play Messi or even play those other 2 guys that they brought in, okay? I think they might be inclined to play some guys that they're going to take a look at, as far as next year goes. Okay. So, Charlotte has a really good chance.
Right.
Plus
getting
a win.
To draw or lose to Columbus. That's the other, that's
the other
scenario.
thing, So, it's the proverbial, our destiny is not in our hands anymore. Okay. And that has to do with that loss against Chicago, man. Come on. It just kills me even now, Garry. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, but this is MLS and this is how things work. So this is the scenario that we're facing right now. Bottom line, going to bottom line it for everyone. The 2 teams are basically going to be watching, of course, is Montreal naturally versus Chicago, and of course Charlotte. We're going to be rooting against them. We want them to drop points. We need to pick up points. Where the Red Bulls, if that scenario takes place, all the Red Bulls have to do on that Saturday is either win or draw against a team that really has nothing to play for. And the team that they're going to be facing, of course, is Nashville SC. Last time we went out there, we walked out of there for a draw. Mr. Carlos Cano is going to school you guys on why that game has now taken major importance. And we're going to talk about that after the break. We'll see you back here in 30 seconds. All right, as you saw by the preview, our next and final game of the 2023 campaign takes us to Geodis Park in wonderful Nashville, Tennessee, the home of music and good food and spicy chicken. Something I have to go check out when I next time I go down there.
Hot chicken, Gary.
Hot
chicken. Hot chicken. Yeah. Okay, two of my colleagues have been down to that
stuff.
wonderful city. And I have yet to step my foot down there, but I will, because I'm a foodie and I like to sample good food whenever I hear it and stuff like that. And we're going to check that out. But of course, there is not only that, there is a game to be played down there. Hopefully, they don't choke on that food, because right now, I think the good news is they're getting rest up for the week. The bad news is, Carlos, last I checked, they didn't win up there for a while. I mean, they're a tough team to be played. Nashville SC is a very tough out at home.
Well, Nashville is a tough out at home. Look, I think the reality is that in MLS, unless you're unless you're a team who's really in the gutter in terms of the standings, I think historically speaking, if you're the home team, you always have a huge advantage because it's always difficult to win on the road. We've always seen that in MLS. But believe it or not, the history between the Red Bulls and Nashville is actually relatively short. We've only played 3 matches against Nashville in their short history. Obviously, they're one of the newer franchises in the league, and we have 1 win over them and 2 draws. They have not beaten us yet all time in our history. So for whatever that's worth, we have that kind of going behind us, that we have not lost to this team. We have played them at home before, and we have gotten a result. So you go into this decision day on October the 21st. Kickoff is at 6:00. And as those of you who have been watching MLS for a while, but if you haven't been, decision day ends up being pretty fun because all of the games kick off at the same time.
Right?
And so it is one of those days where, I'd like to think that Apple TV will have something, going on where you can either, watch multiple games at once, maybe a la red zone type situation. I don't know. At this point, I'm just making up stuff in terms of what I'd like to see. But we will certainly be scoreboard watching, obviously, because again, and just to kind of reiterate so that it's clear, our destiny is not in our own hands. We do need to win. Mark Fishkin did a great job on X outlining what needs to happen. Mark Coates did mention something that's important, is that the situation there, the Nashville game on Wednesday versus the Revs,
right?
If they lose that game, the game versus us on decision day becomes meaningless to them because they don't have seeding to play for.
Right.
They can still bounce in the seedings depending on what the result is on Wednesday. So that being said,
we're rooting for the Revs on Wednesday. The enemy of the classic, the enemy of thy enemy is thy friend situation for me.
So a win on decision day means that 2 things need to happen. Number 1, Montreal has to either draw or lose at Columbus. Columbus is still playing for 3rd place. So that will be an interesting matchup.
They want that home game
in itself. And then Charlotte, as we were talking about earlier, Charlotte needs to drop points in either of the games that they have left versus Miami.
As we said before,
those become interesting because, as we said, Miami's been eliminated. But the one thing that you have to consider there is that there's still the optic. So unless Miami wants to really tick off its fans at the end of the season by not playing Messi and Busquets and Alba and any of those guys,
jacked up the ticket price. Have you seen those ticket prices?
I mean, it could become a problem. So while if you eliminate that factor, right, one would think you're going to see the Miami B squad because they have nothing to play for. So at this point, why not just run the kids out there and see what you got for next season, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Very unique situation with Messi being on that club, and what a bad taste to leave in that fan base's mouth than to not play your star players, even though they've been eliminated, when you've had people who have fronted hundreds and thousands of dollars games. But in any case, all of that is just, kind of sidebar. At the end of the day, Charlotte needs to drop points. So they need to either draw one of those games, lose those games outright.
So we're basically asking Inter Miami to do the Red Bulls a solid. To say, okay, just kick one of them. That's all.
And as if that's not enough, then you have to factor in, right? And this just goes to show that our destiny is really not in our hands. If we happen to go to Nashville and draw, then everything that I just said needs to happen. Plus, Chicago needs to lose at NYCFC in order for us to be able to.
We're asking the Pigeons also to do us a favor, do us a solid. While, by the way, they might be out as well.
So it will be.
Decision day is fun, y'all. I mean, this is why they package this whole thing when it comes to decision day. This is the one thing that of course, as Red Bull fans, you want to try to avoid, this ridiculousness. Because remember when we were involved in the fun, when we were trying to clinch Supporters Shield with Toronto, right? And how much fun that we were looking at the scoreboard while watching, the Red Bulls play. But now we're at the other end of the spectrum where we're trying to join the party and not get left out. Miguel, you've said this once, twice, three times, many times over. Matches like this are not for the faint of heart. It's a 50-50 chance. With everything said, forget Miami and Charlotte for a second. The one team that I'm really looking at is New England, and Columbus. Columbus wants third place. Do you see that happening?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see them taking care of New England, because they suck, so, I mean, right there. And then they need to play. Columbus plays Montreal, as a matter of fact, So then, they could do us all a favor if they could win that, but, it's, as you said, it's not for the faint of heart, but what I hate the most is like when your destiny is not in your hands, Garry. When you have to depend on results. So now what I'm mostly concerned with is our team defeating Nashville, which, I think it's still a tall order, Garry. Down there, they have a really good team. Their fan base fills up that stadium. So, I would say it's less than 50-50, Garry. How about that? Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's a question I want to repeat over to our, to our live audience right now. How do you feel about, coming into that weekend? Do you feel the Red Bulls have a chance? Mark is saying 50-50 at best. What's your odds? I mean, yes, of course, we're going to bring up the old time to tested, Han Solo line. Never tell me the odds, but you're feeling good, toward this match, or you're feeling trepidatious about it? Because, we've never, you said we never do well against teams or top of the standings until we ran into FC Cincinnati and then they dig deep and said, okay, we got to beat these guys and do it. I see, of course, I don't want to put my prediction too early, but I'm seeing, a good result. And what I mean by a good result, I'm seeing basically the same. The only guy that they really got to keep in wraps, of course, is Hani Mukhtar, especially during set pieces. The dude is deadly on set pieces. They can't do any fouls near the box or giving this team free kicks because they got a lot of tall targets that they can use and all lies, and they can bang in the back of the net. Past that point, like Carlos said, we never lost to these guys. So My concern really is that not necessarily a win, fellas, and everyone else listening, ending it as a draw, and all the scenarios that you just mentioned, Carlos, go in the opposite direction, and then that's really good. And then that one loss at home is going to sting. That's my concern.
My concern is going on the road. I mean, that's really the biggest thing for me, because if you look at the standings, the difference between right now, at least the standings right now, right? The difference between Nashville and us are 2 wins. So to me, that says that this team is not far off. So in other words, a taller task was going to Cincinnati and getting the result, which we did. So given that, and given the kind of match that we played on Saturday, albeit versus a really not good team, my biggest concern is that they're going to go on the road, and the road is always merciless to the visiting team, because again, I think that they're a lot more evenly matched than we probably give them credit for. And given the last 2 games, you can't help but think that there's going to be, I would hope, the international break kind of kills it, because any kind of momentum kind of gets really paused, because now they're not going to play for 2 weeks. And Nashville is. So we'll kind of see how it plays out. The other thing to keep in mind too is that Nashville's already in, regardless, right? So that also brings up the question of, okay, especially once they get through the Revs this week, once we come back from the break, right? So before we get to decision day, they still have to face the Revs. So what does that mean to them? Like, how are they going to approach it in terms of, okay, do we not start Mukhtar because he's just too valuable to us to risk losing
Good
to
point.
some freak injury or something happening in a game that we really don't need at this point, right? And same with a lot of their other starters that they may consider to really be keys to their success in the playoffs, right? Obviously, for us, we have everything to play for, so that you're going to see the quote unquote A team, whatever that means for us these days. But so for me, it's 2 things. It's, again, being on the road is always going to put you at a disadvantage, but then seeing the team that Nashville ultimately puts out on the field on decision day, I think will also tell a lot about the game that we can potentially have versus Nashville.
I agree. Everything that you said, I absolutely agree with that. And one of the things that keeps biting me, one of the things that keeps slapping me upside the head, is, forget about the injuries, because any team has to deal with a lot of injuries. And certainly the Red Bulls have had their share. My goodness. Guys coming back, hamstring issues. We lose 3 of our best offensive pieces for the year because of it. It's the inconsistency that bugs me, where it's very hard to do when you're in a league as physical as Major League Soccer. However, teams tend to be 80-20 on the ball and doing quite well, whereas with this team is basically somewhat of a struggle. Now, Miguel, as I point this over to you, something that you took out a big fat red crayon and circled directly in the midfield. That's where the inconsistencies start, and that's where the good vibes come to an end. So do you see this team? I mean, they really stepped it up versus Cincinnati. Do they have to repeat the same performance this time in Geodis Park?
Yeah, of course they do. Come on. They gotta be the best version of the Rebels that they can hope to be this season, okay? Against a really good team, Garry. Okay, this is not Toronto FC. They did it against Cincinnati with. I was shocked to no end. Okay,
They have
folks were wondering where was this all season, right? So
they gotta duplicate the same performance for us to have any chance of not getting American relegated. Okay, thank you.
Listen, they have to do what I think what we're used to seeing in all of our favorite sports movies, right? Like they need to leave it all on the field because there is no tomorrow, right? I know that kind of sounds hokey and corny, but if they don't win, or at least get the draw, right, there's no tomorrow. So if they go out there and lay a goose egg, that's it. That's the season and American relegation.
What scares me is what scares me, Gary, is like, what are the chances of Elias Manuel and Tom Barlow scoring in a game? There you go. So
again,
that's the question.
That should scare you. That should scare you. That should be over the moon. You and everybody else.
What are the chances of them duplicating? What are the chances of them
you?
Gary, what are the chances of them duplicating that feat again? That's the question. Okay. I think Barlow went like 20 games without scoring a goal, something like that.
I don't want.
So there you go.
It's a very good question.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Garry.
It's a very good question, and it deserves a very good answer. I'm not certainly looking for those two to step up. I'm basically looking for guys like Lukinis. I'm looking for Omir Fernandez. I'm looking for Frankie Amaya. I'm looking for I'm definitely looking forward to even Tom and John Tolkien. I'm looking for a lot of those guys to step up because this is it.
Let me tell you something, Gary. And speaking of milk cartons, or Mia Fernandez, has been on a milk carton lately. Okay,
he's 1 foot. He's 1 foot there. He's 1 foot there.
There you go.
He, out of all the people, I need him to step up.
Thank you.
This is his time to shine. His contract runs out at the end of the year. I'd love to have him back. He loves it here. He's quickly becoming a fan favorite. I definitely, definitely this is his time for him to shine, as well as Amaya, as well as Cameron Harper. Okay. He was in a great position versus FC Cincinnati, and he pulled his shot in front of an open net wide to his right. Could have been a goal right there. He's got to be a little bit more clinical with the finishing. And have you guys noticed that many of the players that I've mentioned have stepped up a little, where in many cases they weren't, you see him pop up like whack-a-mole, like, hi, I'm here, and then they disappear for a couple of games. But lately, as the games become more and more important, they stepped up a lot. I mean, out of all those players, I'm talking to the guys of the audience right now, who do you want to see step up in this final game, and why? I said, Omir Fernandez, he needs to be the tip of the sword. I also said Cameron Harper, he needs to be in there. Of course, naturally, Tom Barlow and, of course, Elias Manuel, they need to step up as well. But who else? Okay. This is going to be a match where it's going to take all hands on deck. Nashville knows it. Okay. Keep in mind, there are 3 players on that team that know the Red Bulls very well. One of them that used to captain that side. So, most of the guys that they're coming in are most of his friends. So they know this very well. Guys, I'm looking at a knife fight. This is going to be tight. This is going to be, for a game that for one side, that's not going to mean a lot of things. This is going to be tight down the stretch. One team is going to try to win that game to keep their playing hopes alive, hoping it's not too little too late. And the one saying, we're at home. We can just beat these guys and send these guys home packing. But let me see, let me see if you get some answers for many, many of the folks I talked to. Vincent Escobar was up first. He said, "They said it 2 weeks ago. Omir is not a consistent player. I wish, because when he is hot, he is great." You guys agree on that?
100%. Let's be honest. We have
I mean, Miguel,
we
yeah.
have a longer list of players on this club that are inconsistent versus consistent, and Omir is definitely not one of the more consistent ones. Has a world of talent, world of potential. Consistency, however, is not among one of those talents.
No, it goes along with time. Said all it. And it's true. All hands on deck now. The excuses are done. You can't be sitting on the sidelines and just standing around, because something that would just blow Carlos's top when he sees something like that. But it can't be that. You have to, this is your last game in the year. You need to put your best foot forward. And one thing I want to point out before we get to Gotham FC and, of course, New York Red Bull 2, someone had asked me about the playoff in general. If you make it to the 9th place, it's a one-shot deal. So basically, all you're doing is playing for that one extra game. Should you survive that, it's the best of 3 with the team with the number 1 seed. So I had that backwards a couple of weeks ago, where it said it was the best of 3 in the first round. No quote. I mean, if you win that game, it's if you finish on 8th place, you finish at that game is at your place. So as it stands right now, should the Red Bulls somehow sneak in to the 9th seed, they're going to Montreal for that one and done showdown. Winner takes on the number 1 seed for the top. They're going to go. MLS is going old school, circa 1996, where the playoffs in the first.
Yeah.
Yep, 1996, where they had best of 3. First team that got 5 points advances. It wasn't wins, it was points. So if you get 2 straight wins, you're moving on. If you get win and a point, then if he forces game number 3 and tired legs, it was a very fun affair. People were scratching their heads. The true soccer or football fans, they were disgusted and walked away. So that's basically how it was back in 1996. So they're going back to that.
I think the Rebels had to play if I remember correctly, I think the Rebels had to play a 3-game series against DC United that first season.
Correct. Very correct. Right. The back and forth trip from DC and New York was kind of crazy. It was a real fun affair. Speaking of New York Red Bulls 2, unfortunately, their season came to an end in the MLS Next Pro playoffs in the hands of New England Revolution 2. Fry, of course, scored the goal in the. I mean, they out of all the games they had, back over at MLS Soccer Park, they had a great first half. This one, not so much, Miguel. They just simply laid an egg and couldn't recover. And as such, their season was donezo. Let's talk about New York Red Bull 2. I mean, do you see their first season with MLS Next Pro a success, or they still have a long way to go?
Well, the way I feel about it, I think it's like a step down a level. I really would have liked to see our second team play against other teams full of actual pros, not
a la USL.
Exactly. USL. Exactly, But now, they're playing teams from other MLS teams who are just full of prospects, I don't see how that brings up the level, okay? But you know what? We might want to have a discussion on this with Mark, who is the RBNY2 expert, okay? Maybe next episode, because he sees the team every freaking game, all right? So I'd like to get
that discussion. Yeah, we will have that discussion and see, where they stand. I think Sakaga, did a masterful job of taking over that group and brought them from where they were to where they finished. And while being knocked out of the playoffs is a grab. Let's face it, it's a disappointment. Okay, after fighting your way there, the playoff format was a little confusing to say the least, where the top seed get to pick their opponent.
What? What was that?
Yeah, you heard me. Yeah, you heard me. The top seed of the conference gets to pick their opponent. Doesn't mean anything now because we're out, but you get the idea. So it's a little.
Wait. The top seed gets to look down the list,
right,
and says, "I want to play that team."
Correct.
I'm going to fall over in my chair now. Please,
this is probably
please.
This is probably the reason why I said I don't trust MLS.
Oh my God,
Carlos on the New York, New Jersey Gotham FC front. They had a huge game against the Portland Thorns, and all it took was one stinking goal to lose. The girl's name is Sujita, scored in the 54th minute. They were in second place when they faced off the Portland Thorns. Now they dropped down to fourth. The good news is that Gotham FC is making their way into the playoffs, but they're struggling to hold on to that last home match should things finish as they are. Carlos, you've been keeping an eye on Gotham. What happened up in Portland? I mean, did they miss the memo that this was an important game or something?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think I don't think there's really any difference in what we talk about with MLS with teams going out on the road. Going out on the road for one reason or another, or many reasons at that, is always going to put you at a disadvantage, whether it's the travel, whether it's, the being in, enemy territory or whatever the case is. So going to Portland and getting a result was going to certainly be a tall task. And unfortunately, they just, weren't able to get the job done. So now it'll come down to their decision day on the 15th. It'll be the last home game of the season for the team, and I know that they've been promoting the game a ton because it is Ali Krieger's last regular season home game for this club. And so, if you're out there and available and ready to go, definitely head out.
And the weather is nice. Oh, yeah, that's right. They said it was going to be raining this weekend. Okay, remember, Red Bull Arena has a roof. You just have to carry the umbrella to and from. And the game is on Sunday or Saturday?
That game is on Sunday.
Okay. I'll make a decision whether I'm going to go or not, but I should go. I should actually. I haven't seen the Gotham girls live since they're rebranded. I guess I got to poke my head in and say hi, and I have to do so. So they're fighting. So the good news is they're in the hunt. They're not out of it. It all depends on whether they get a home game or not. They need to win this game. They need to cement that so they can have that home game. And then, of course, as you all well know, it's a knockout. It's a knockout round. You win, you move on. You lose, you go home. The championship game will be the championship game will be at the home of the last two teams standing. In this case, if all else fails, should Portland survive, they're hosting the big party for the NWSL championship, and we'll see how that goes on for me. So. Our last piece of business before we all take a break for a week, and then we return, of course, after the Nashville game. Speaking of, gentlemen, this is the dangerous part of our show, predictions. Carlos, you're up first. How do you see this going? Let's see a final score.
Who knows anymore? What are predictions? What is life? What is liberty and the pursuit of happiness? Look,
when you get like this is comical.
What I will tell you is the following. So on Wednesday, I was working and could not watch the game, so I followed the thread. And then on Saturday, there was conflicting television for me because the Phillies were playing and there was also a wrestling premium live event happening.
Oh.
And so I said to myself, you know what? I didn't watch them on Wednesday, and they won. So I'm not going to watch the game live, and I'm simply going to follow the thread. And you know what? They beat Toronto. So I will say that I will most likely continue to follow suit and will not watch Decision Day live as it's happening. I'll probably watch one of the other games that we need to rely on. But I believe that they will win. I believe that they will go to Nashville and they will win because I think that they're mounting this momentum from these last two games, and given the international break kind of coming now, at a time when they're best, they're going to rest up. They're going to take the trip down, and I think they're going to get the job done. And then we'll ultimately see how things play out. But I see a 2-0 victory.
Okay. Miguel, on you.
Listen, Garry and Carlos, Lesane in the membrane, okay? I predict that we will win, okay? The thing is, getting the other results to fall in line, okay? That's the issue, okay?
That's the issue.
I can't believe that everything is going to go our way, but I think with backs against the wall, I think they're going to go down to Nashville, and they're going to do a job on them. I don't know what the score, but you know what? I think we're going to win. Thank you.
I'm giving this a 2-1 result. Us. There's no way you're going to keep Hani Mukhtar out of the net. He's just too good. He has a way to just beating it, but then they've been slipping as of late, and I'm hoping and I'm holding to that that result. Barring that, we're going to be keeping a close eye on other results around the league, especially the game that's leading up to that one versus Charlotte. And then if Charlotte can able to, if Miami can able to do us a solid and, put a banana peel in front of those hard charging boys, I can breathe easy going into Saturday. Because, the other game, of course, as you mentioned, if Montreal drops that result, with NYCFC does us a favor and puts a banana peel in front of that team, we don't have to worry about the game. As you said, Carlos becomes meaningless at this point for them, because it means, doesn't mean anything, doesn't mean anything, to them at that point. We'll see what happens from there. So there's a lot of things that'll happen, but on Wednesday going into that, everyone is going to be watching other matches to see whether or not that this season continues on or it ends in Tennessee. And can we say something about the folks over in Tennessee? A lot of people have been laughing about Tennessee being a soccer state. Well, guess what? They certainly have become a soccer state. I mean, kudos to them, which is probably the reason why I want to visit that city. It has everything going. They got hockey, football, soccer, basketball. I mean, college basketball. It's always been a hotbed. But that's one
Garry,
city I definitely got to check out.
Yeah, Garry, I got to tell you, in my last visit there, because as you know, my daughter lives in Nashville. Okay.
Oh,
as a matter of
okay.
fact, yeah, I mean, they just moved. They live right outside. But going to those bars, they have Nashville SC stuff everywhere, man.
That's the only team in town.
That diners that we went to, Nashville SC. I saw a billboard, Nashville SC. So they have pretty good support right now, I would say.
Yeah, they're the only team in town.
Lots of people walking around Nashville SC jerseys. Okay,
yeah.
So there you go.
Not surprising. That. So those are predictions. That's what we said in net. And with that, we will put an end to episode 90. Missed the live one, which is happening right now. Those are coming to an end. You can catch it on Spotify.com. And, of course, on the New York Rebel Discussion Group, the podcast. We do, of course, naturally have a page on YouTube. It'll be loaded up there the very next day. We will be taking a break, of course, because it's international break. The United States is taking on Germany. Of course, it's a friendly. Nothing really to get excited about that. But it's a game you have to watch. And then, of course, Saturday is decision day. We will, of course, will be here on Monday to talk about if the Red Bulls go on the next week or go home and pack their bags. I'm sure we're all going to be watching intently to see if the yearly playoff streak moves on or comes to an end. Of course, Lonneray, I hope, will be back by next week. Of course, we'll have Mark Holtz as well. We'll talk about the end, of course, of RB Red Bull 2. But for Carlos Cano, who's been absolutely marvelous as always, and of course Miguel Nunez, of course, with me and myself, Garry Redmond. Thank you guys so much for joining us and lending your support to this podcast, which belongs to every single one of you. Remember, if you want to actually, give us how we're doing, it's how we're doing. We do, of course, have an email address, rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. Hook us up, and we'd love to hear from you and tell us how we're doing. So we are done. We will see you in 2 weeks. Hopefully there'll be more games to talk about. Until then, from all of us, goodbye for now.